Okay, so today we'll be designing CSS cards, and an example of a card that is, here is a design, and it is mobile responsive in the sense that if you right click on it and you go to inspect, you see the way the card appears. So the two of them, they appear on separate lines. So today we'll be talking about how you can design a CSS card like this one. So over here I have already I created a folder with the index.html file and the style.css file, and I've linked them already. So here is just the prototype of it. So creating CSS cards is not really something that is too difficult, but creating websites actually lies on creating cards like this, because cards are things that you tend to pass out relevant information to people and also get in relevant feedback from people. So let me just analyze the way this card have been designed. So this card have been designed in the sense that we have a card actually with a border. So it has a border with a border of 1 pixel. So it has a border of 1 pixel. Aside the border of 1 pixel, it also has a picture over here. So this is the picture, and aside the picture it has a heading, H1 heading with a paragraph text, and then with a button over here that you can click. So if you had to link this to another page or to something else, when you click on this no more, it should definitely take you to another page to view more stuffs about what the card is talking about. So the two cards here is just the same thing. So you can just literally create one, you duplicate it, and then you change the text or everything. So keeping everything simple, when you are designing cards, for example, in a position where you are designing cards that look similar, you just have to design one, you duplicate, and then you change the content. Alright, going up to the design phase, the first thing I'll do is to put the images in which we are to use in this folder CSS card. So I'll just come over here, actually, okay, let me bring here so you see what I'm doing. So these are the two images here. So I'll just definitely copy these images, I can copy them, then I'll go back here, coding project, then I'll enter 100 days of code. That's where the folder is. So this is CSS card. So I can decide to create a folder in here called images. So to keep things okay and simple, here I'll create called images, and then in this images folder I will save the images inside. Now that will hold everything in your design. So here you can create a container by just making a container class. So you just say dot container, so you say dot container, something like this, and this is a div element actually. So in this div element we want to create a card element, of which we can make them two. So at the end of the day we'll make them two. So if we just say dot card, so this is the card we are creating. So in this card element you want to add an image, an img, and this image comes from a source folder, and the source folder is found in this folder here. So you just put a slash, you put images, then you put slash, then you put the name of the image. Better say you cannot specify the first slash, you can just say images slash, then it shows this one. Let's take the first one. So we want to specify in the image directories. Why? Because the image directories is found inside the CSS card, and in the CSS card we have the index.html file. So we are specifying that in these image directories, enter there and pick up the image called hero.png. And now the alternative text is the text that displays when this image fails to load. For example, let's say hero.png, so that you see. Okay, if I save this, you see the image appears here normally. So we have an image that is appearing here. Let me just say, for instance, that something happened to this image URL, for example, and something like this, and then I was forced to save it. So you see what displays here, a broken image with a written text hero.png. So the function of the alt or the alt is the alternative text. What displays if this image fails to load is called the alternative text. So the alternative text here now displays when our image fails to load. So that's what we have here. So if we put back our png here, sorry about that, my keyboard is too sensitive. So if we put back our png, the image appears. So the next thing we want to do is put an h1 tag. So this h1 tag, as we can see, let's just say web development, sorry, web development class 2, something like this, and we save. You see an h1 tag appears down, and so the next thing we want to add there is a paragraph. So we want to add a paragraph, and this paragraph, this is a shortcut to have like just some few, like some random words. So you can just say lorem, you say 20 for instance, 20 words appear, and then we have them here. So if we just save it here, you see the 20 words appear there. So now with this, now you have the basic structure of what you want. So this is what we first of all need. So after styling this, you can now come and recopy the CSS card because it has the same property. If you see over here, you see that these two cards have the same property, but the content in which they display may differ. So if we come back here and go to the style file, so the style have already been linked over here, so I linked the style already here. So if you come to the style folder or the style file, the first thing you want to do is you have to target the whole page to remove external padding. For example, if we say body, and then we give the body a background color of red, for instance, let's see what happens. So if I add this, I don't know why it's displaying today, but if you look around here, you can see some small spacing like that is found there. So first of all, you have to target the whole content zone, which goes with an asterisk and this. So you have to say padding should be 0 and the margin should be 0 also. So the first thing you have to say is that padding and margin should be 0. Now after you say the padding and margin should be 0, normally the body takes the whole width. So what we first have to target is the dot container. So when you are targeting the container, you want to give this container some basic properties that will enable this cat, the cat that we have here, to fit into it perfectly, so they can be at any position they want. So the first thing we want to say is that we specify the width of the cat. So do not always forget, the main container should always have a specified width depending on what width you are choosing. So for this one, we want to choose a width of 100%. That is, it occupies the entire width of the screen, so it can start from here to here. Depending on the screen in which you are coding on, it can appear 100%. So even if it's from like as wide as this is, 100% will be from beginning here to the end over here. So that is 100%. So if we come here now, we specify the width to be 100%, and we save. And then we want to specify that the height should be, we want to give it a maximum height. Let's just say 100 view height. So we recently said that you can measure width in view width and in percentages, also in pixels, and you measure height in view height, in pixels, and also in percentages. So depending on the various areas where you'll be working on, you get to understand where you can use percentages, where you can use view height, where you can use pixels, and vice versa. So here to understand now, so we have this, so we have our card here. Now let's first of all target the card before we come back to the container. So if we say dot card, for instance, and then we want to give this card a width of, let me say, 300 pixels and a height of about, sorry, the width is too big, but let's just say a height of 400 pixels to to see what happens. So normally we have something displaying here because why, the image is too small. So if I come here and I give this cat a background, so for you to see where the cat is, if we give this a background color of red, for instance, to see really where it is, so you see where the cat is. So this is where the cat is found normally, as we are seeing here, but you see that the content of the cat, like, it takes the whole screen. Why? Because the image is too large. The image is large, so you have to state properties for the image. And targeting an image property, you can either give the image tag using target the image by using the img tag, or you can give this image a class and target it individually. See, I've given on styles, the cat has a width of 30 pixels and a height of 30 pixels. So when you are using pixels, you are specifying that wherever screen you go to, these same properties will have same size and same height. So when you talk about view width, it deals only with the width of the device. When you talk about view height, it talks only about the height of the device. When we talk about pixels, it says that wherever you go to, implement these same properties. So for instance, if we enlarge this screen, you see where the red background is found. If you enlarge it, you see over here it is the same, it changes not. So when you use pixels, pixels doesn't change. But if we give this, for instance, a percentage, let me give percentage so that you see what I'm talking about. Okay, let's just say the width of this guy here was 50%. We wanted it to be 50%. So when you give 50%, you can calculate 50% of the container where it is found. That's the length, the width it will carry. So if we save it, you see it's taking 50%, and if we enlarge it over here, you see the width increases. So when you are giving percentages, percentages follow, like, they are trying to share everything by percent. For example, if you give it a width of 50%, it is trying to take 50% of the width, no matter the width it is taking. So the view width is, we have set the view width to be 100%, meaning that whatever screen we find ourselves in, the width should always be 100% view width. And this guy here, we are giving him a width of 50%. Percentage means it calculates like 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. So he is taking 50%, and 50 means half. That's why I am seeing from here to about half of the screen is red, and then here is white. So that's where percentages comes in. So let's change back this percentage to pixels. So let's put it back as 30 pixels the way it was. Sorry, 300 pixels. So we have 300 pixels and it's the same, but if we enlarge it, you see it has the same size as before, so the size doesn't change, so it maintains one size. So let's just proceed. So now, why do we have everything scattered? Is because what, our image here is too large, so you have to target the image. So if you target the image, now as what I was explaining is that you can target the image by using the img tag, or you can target the image by giving an image a specific class. For example, if you are working on a project where you have multiple images, so you cannot just target like img, because the images might be in different locations that have different properties, different sizes, different heights, different widths. So you might not necessarily use the img tag at that time. You might decide to give each image a class or series of images that belongs to the same property a class. So let's stick to the 300 pixels. Now you can decide to give a height, since for now we are working with pixels, so even if I enlarge it, it's still the same. So the next thing you want to do is, now when you look here, you see all of them are trying to be centralized, and then this one also have a border. So how do you give border? From what we discussed in our previous class, to give border to this cat, let us first of all remove the background color and we save. So we have this. Now to be guided and know what to do, you can just give this one a border solid black. Okay, let's stick with black for now. So this is our border. So the border is guiding us to show us where we are, not to miss out. Now the next thing you want to do is to try that everything inside here should be centralized, because the other way you saw is centralized. And the best, one of the best ways, not the best, but one of the best and proper ways of centralizing stuff in CSS is using the display flex property. So you have to give every content inside this div a display property of flex. So let us give it a display property and see the outcome. So here, if we say display, I will say the display should be flex. This way we'll see what happens. So it tries to align them on a row. Why? Because the display property tries to align content on a row. That is the default property. So the next thing you want to do is to specify how the display should be. Should it be displayed on row or column? So you say flex direction. So the flex direction specifies the direction to which the content in that specific container should be. So let's stick to column. So column means they will display this way. Now, to make them to be centralized, there are two properties. The first one is aligning items to the center. So you can align items to the center, and you can still use justify content to the center. Sorry, yes. So they have been aligned to the center and been justified to the center. So over here you see of this container here, so that you see the align item center property, how it applies. So here I'll increase this to about, let me say 900 pixels along. Okay, if we enlarge this, oh, it's too large, it's more than the screen. What did I even write here? Okay, let's use this, and then we'll give the image a height. So this image should have a height of about 200 pixels. Height should be 200 pixels. Let's see how it is. Oosh. It's because the width is 100. Now let me change the width to about 200 pixels also and see. 200 pixels. Okay, so we have this. Now I want you to understand. Let me first of all change the align here. So when the align item center works only with the display flex property. So display flex property has other properties that accompanies it. What are the properties? We have the display flex direction or the flex direction. We have the align items, and we have the justify content property. We also have there's another property called the flex wrap. So if I come here and I remove this display flex, for instance, let me say I remove it and I save, none of these other properties will work. They will not work. Everything will go back to default. So the display flex property or the align items center or align items only work when the flex is there. So if I save it, you see everything goes back to normal. Now when let me remove, there's not just only align item center, there are other align properties. So you have center, flex end, flex start. For example, let's take flex end and see what happens. So it switches everything to the other side. So this switches everything to the end. So you can align them to the flex end. Aligning them to the center means it pulls everything to the center. So if I say center, oh, this my keyboard is too sensitive. So if we say center, this is what happens. It tries to put everything in the middle of the page or whatever, or the containers. So you see here, it tries to put everything in the middle. So let us target the H1, the paragraph, and use now the text align so that you see. Okay, then we'll come here to the card. We'll have to change this back to 300 pixels. Okay, we have this back 300 pixels. This one here, the image should be back to 100%. Let's just put back what we had before, and then we can leave the height there. Okay, so we have this. Now let's say text align center, and you see, so you see here everything is aligned to the left by default. Everything is aligned to the left. And if we say here that text align center, what happens? It aligns them to the center. It's just like when you're typing in a Microsoft Word document. It tries to align. When you take that alignment center, it tries to align everything to the center. So that's how it does. Yes. So I want to show you something again. Now, when you are doing your designs and you think that the height and the width of your design will not be like relative, like let me just say you don't want to give a specific height and width because you think the different cats might have different heights or sizes with respect to the content they hold, and then you also think that, or you just feel that some cats might have some spaces there that is not really proper. So what you do is, for example, this is our cat here, you can give it height auto. Now height auto means it gives the height of the content found in it. You say auto here. So are you seeing what happens here? Yes, the height of the content is the height of the whole document. So now you can just give it like something like an inner padding. Let me just say padding of 10 pixels that should push the things downward. Okay, now so the next thing we are lacking here is a button, which is normal. So we just want to add a button here. So you just say button, and in this button we say no, say normal. So it's just to normal. So we can now style this button. So just come here, you can either give it a class and you style it, or you can target it using a button tag or whatever. So here we want to give it a width of about 100 pixels first to see how it is, and then we give it a height of about 30 let me say 40 pixels. So that is it. We want to give it no border, so we say border should be none, and then we want to give it a background color of, let me say, black, and then we want the text color there should be white. So color, normal color, you just write color should be white. So we save it here. This is how our button is. Now we can give this button a margin, like margin of 10 pixels, and then we'll have this, so it tries to separate it from the text, and we can also come to the text and the heading one. We just give it a margin also of 10 pixels, so it also tries to like separate them. So you see, as we are giving these guys margins and width, it increases their height, but you see our cat here is still taking a specific height. Why? Because it is taking the height of every element inside here. So the next thing we want to do now is to give this guy a border radius. So the cat here had a border radius, so we increase the border size. Let's just say 2 pixels, so that it thickens a bit. And then over here we give it a border radius of about 20 pixels, just to see what it got. For 20, okay, 20 pixels is perfect. So we have a border radius of 20 pixels. Now the next thing we want to do is, like, this font here doesn't look good. At the end I'll show you how you can change the font, but for now let's just complete the design. Now over here you saw where this guy was floating, right? It was floating right down here. You can decide to make it to be here at the center here. So what I'll do is I'll come to the container, and I'll still give the container flex properties. So we just say display should be flex. We say justify content center. Sorry, we just want to align items to the center also, and then we want to save. So you see, it takes this man to the center due to the align item center justify content center property. For example, if I remove this align item center, it will shift it to the right, to the left. Yes, let's say save. What is giving this guy a height of this much? No, it's not supposed to be happening. Let me reverse it back and see. Oh, I understand. It's because this guy here has a height of auto, so he's trying to take the normal height of the whole screen. Let me check about this justify content and see. So you see when you remove the justify content property, it shifts it here, and the align items here should definitely take this to the top. You should take it to the top. Because I don't know why it is not doing so, because we have a height of photo. So if we came here, you specify the height of this guy. I just want you to understand what it does. So the cat should have a height of, let's say, 400 pixels. For instance, you see it is up right at the top. So if you use now like the justify content center, you see it goes towards the center, it is centralized. So we use back our align property. So you say align item center to send it to the middle. So we have it here. So this is firstly what we have. But now, what have you seen? There's a change. The size of the button have changed. Why? Because our height is not equal to the properties, that is the individual property height. Even though if you look here, you see that this image here is trying to come out a little bit. Why? Because the height of this whole cat is smaller than the individual height combined. So the image here has a height. This height, H1 here has its own height. This other one here is taking a considerable height, and this one here is taking a height. That's why I always choose to put the cat should have an auto height. So if you come here and you change the height to be auto, for instance, you see everything goes back to normal. The button has a size. This one is okay. The image is inside the cat. So that one is okay. So the next thing you want to do now is to, like, since your cat is already okay, it's done, you can now duplicate it and make another one. But before duplicate, let's duplicate and then I'll show you something. So over here, so duplicating is just like you come over here. This is a div, cat div, you just copy this div here, Control C, and then you come down here and you paste it. So the next thing you want to do is to change this image here. So if we are changing that image, we take this one here, hero1.png. So you see we have two cats. Now, if you remember, I spoke about display properties and said there were some few display properties, and I mentioned a few. So there was another one I said it was included, but I did not put it here, which is the flex wrap. So the flex wrap property just says that if this space is small, push the next guy to the next line. So if I say flex wrap should be wrap. So there's wrap, there's no wrap. So here you can see there's no wrap. You should not wrap anything. Wrap should wrap. Wrap reverse should reverse the two guys. So you can inherit the property from its parent. So inherit means you should inherit from a parent. Initial is just like default. So if we say wrap, for instance, and we save, what happens? We see the two cats are aligned down. So since the space that was here, let me remove the wrap property. So since the space that was here, it was smaller, the two of them are trying to tighten each other to fit to the screen. It was not okay. When you put flex wrap, it says that whenever there is no space, you, the guy at the right, go down, shift down. So that's what happens. So the guy goes down. And now to make your cats to be like two different things and separate them from each other, you come down to the cat, you have to give them a margin. So the cat has to have a margin. A margin is the external distancing from the next element. So if you come here and you say margin, for instance, of 20 pixels, let's see what happens. They separate from each other automatically. So this is what we have. And if we enlarge the screen, what do you see? They align themselves next to each other. Why are they aligning themselves next to each other? Because we have not given them the flex direction. Because normally the flex direction here by default is row. So flex, my keyboard is too sensitive. Flex direction by default is row. So, and if I remove this flex wrap, for instance, you see that it tries to fit to the row. Why? Because I've given it a flex direction row. And now when you give it a flex direction row, you see the way it is appearing no matter the screen. Even if you try to make it small, like expecting it to be on a phone size, you see the size will always be the same, like this. You see the way it is not that proper. So using this property here, flex wrap says that, hey, guy at the right, whenever there's no enough space, move downward, and then the flex direction specifies the direction. So irrespective of this direction here, this property will always apply when the size is small. So if you see here, they're aligned like this. If you enlarge it, they become this way. You reduce the size, for instance, like this, they align this way. So they have a breakpoint, for instance. You are seeing, right? There's a breakpoint.
Yes.
When the total width of the screen is less than the combined, it's less than the combined width of the two cards. So these guys say they're having a width plus the external margin that I've applied. Because if we come here and you like inspect it, and then you click on this arrow here to understand what's happening. If you bring it close here, you see it's detecting first of all something, the container where it is found. And then when you see the container here, it's still aligning some white spacing before the card begins, because when the card begins here, you see this is the card. And it's when you check the properties here, you can see that the guy has a margin down here. I cannot take my mouse down to that point, but if you see where that pop-up comes down and it's kind of obscuring down here, you see where it shows margin of 20 pixels. So it's indicating that this guy has an external margin of 20 pixels. So this is where at times when you are working and then there is something that is not displaying properly, you can always come here to the console. You just right click, you take on inspect, you come here, you check what is not displaying or what is not taking the full weight or anything. You just see here, when you see the element now, you can now target it. So the last thing we were to talk about was here. I said here, when you see here, you see the font here. Sorry, this is it. So you see the font here is different. So I wanted to show you how you can add an external font to your design. And also our buttons here had a radius, so we can also add it there. So over here we can just come, first of all we close this, and then our button, we just give it a radius of about radius of about, let me say 20 pixels. Let's leave it at 20 pixels so it is rounded. So now I wanted to show you how you can add external fonts. So the next thing you have to do is to come to fonts, and this only occurs when you are online, so the fonts will only load when you are online. So you say fonts.google.com. so you have to come to this website and download the font that you want to appear in your design. So for instance, you can check here, I love Poppins a lot, that's why here you can see Poppins already there. So also have Open Sans, so this is Open Sans. You can choose any font here that you want. Now when you choose a font, for instance, let me say Open Sans, you click on it. Now when you choose Open Sans, you have to choose a style. For example, let's check this one that is bold, so you have to add it here. When I add it here, you see over here it adds here. So there are two ways of which you can import. You can import it as a style link by linking it the same way you link CSS. For example, when you copy this text here, so it shows link or import. So link here is you just right clicking and copying this, coming to your here, and then you come to where the HTML is, and you can link it here. So you can link it here. So the next thing you want to do is to come here again to this website. You come to where it says font family, Open Sans. This you want to copy this and put it in the body, Control C, or where you have that asterisk showing padding and margin. So you come back here and then you come to styles. You can come here to where this asterisk is and you paste it here and you save. And if we come also here and we save, and then we'll come back here, you see the font have changed automatically. Yeah. Now using this import works, you import it only on the CSS. So import, you click on import here, it highlights here. So what you do, you want to copy from here right to where it starts with import. So if you right click here and you click copy, this is how you add this one. So you come here just to the CSS. What you have to do is you come right to the top here. You just want to paste that link here. So you are importing everything in your style sheet. And then if I came here and I removed what we have here, for instance, and I save, and I come here, don't always forget to put the font style, the font family when you are done. If we save it, I will come back here to our design, for instance. Here I will come back, CSS card, you see it's still the same. Now let's try importing a different font. Like this, my own Poppins. I like Poppins just a lot. So if I come to Poppins, for instance, this is Poppins here. I want to import Poppins. Control C. You can just reduce it here. You come here. Then I also want to import Poppins, so I can just paste the Poppins link here, and then I can just say, or you see, come here. If you know how to target them, you can just come and say Poppins this. So you just have to copy this. So you just have to copy font family Poppins. You come here. I want to paste it here. So I don't want this font. I want Poppins. For instance, you see, if you come here, you see a different font. So this is Poppins. So that is how you can add external fonts to your designs. So I hope we made it through and design what we were supposed to design. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and feel free to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for more.